I'm Lee Chana, partner at Flipton and part of the founding team that developed Certtin, the product we're going to be discussing. I just want to say it's been such a privilege working with the Get Border team over the last few months. I really look forward to the rest of the Alternate Future Summit. And, it's really been a wonderful experience. And, I look forward to doing much more with you in the future. So I'd like to start with just I'm going to try and keep it short. I'd like to start with a little bit of context into the digital credentialing world, the market, and then we'll go into some of our demos so you get to see exactly what our product does and how it's used and how simple it is to be able to issue digital credentials. Just in terms of context, digital credentialing in education, right? There were about 43 million badges issued in 2020, and the expansion rate has been predicted to around 18.34% just over the next 4 years. What this means is it is a huge market, and as you can see, it's more or less dominated by the US right now. A report from IMS Global showed that about I think 40% of the market is captured by the United States, and the rest is split between Europe and Asia Pacific. Now, why are we looking to solve this particular problem? And and it does seem like there are a lot of people doing it. I think, as we all know, paper certificates have been used by educational institutions for hundreds of years, but the process it's completely outdated for our modern students. And the loss of documentation, cost of replacement, and cost of amending it, changing it if you change your surname, for instance, the inability to share it very easily, they all contribute to a very poor recipient experience. As a result, institutions are quite inspired to switch to digital credentials to attract candidates. Now, the future of digital credentials in education is a vision of instantly viable credentials and CVs, which will definitely save time for both hiring parties and issuing bodies. With digital credentials, the potential for fraud and fabricated educational history drops drastically. This protects the integrity of education providers and the value of awarded certifications. It protects your brand. Another important goal for the future of digital credentials in education is the longevity of career advancing credentials. What this means is if an educational institution closes down, the records and verification processes no longer need to be lost. So there can be safeguards in place with digital credentials. They also, they're hosted online in secure data centers outside of the educational institution, and meaning it has a much longer life for accessibility and verifiability. The use of contextual data and market standardization will help hiring managers in organizations, as well as administrators, to better understand a candidate's ability and current skills. This is particularly important as an increasing number of organizations begin to offer training and education to help fulfill the skills gap demand that we have in place now. We've seen the increase in the number of MOOCs that have come on board just in the last 3 to 4 years. And we know that the effect of COVID, we know that it has also impacted the proliferation of digital courses. And higher education is not always accessible for learners due to high costs and long-term time commitments. So we anticipate a much greater demand for independent training and education providers with micro-credentials, as I've just mentioned, and short-term courses. So using detailed context, which is available in a digital credential, hiring parties can easily distinguish the value of a particular certificate from organization A versus organization B. And our vision for Certtin has always been to value not just the qualification that comes from an educational institution, but to value whatever skills or work attestations you may have. So one place to bring in all of your attributes that make you more marketable and employable. Which brings us back to our product, Certtin. It is a notarization platform where we can issue digital credentials that are instantly verifiable. We use Ethereum smart contracts on a private blockchain. As I've just mentioned, the problems with paper-based credentials. With digital, they're simple to verify or instantly verifiable, easy to share globally, anywhere actually. It gives control to the issuer by being revocable if required, and you get your instant value as a digital asset. In terms of a credential, so I've been saying credentials and I've been saying certificates. What's the difference? A credential is a set of claims or attributes about a learner made by an issuer. A verifiable credential then is a tamper-evident credential where the authorship can be cryptographically verified. That means we take your certificate and we put in other information that actually proves the authenticity and the ownership within that certificate. Our value proposition, as I mentioned, the notarization aspect of it, it protects the notarization ownership model protects the credential against document falsification. Each certificate has a unique QR code and an encrypted hash. It facilitates things like learning pathways. As a student progresses through course or program, they're awarded digital badges to represent completion of separate modules. The digital badges provide an incentive for completion, as well as offering third parties a better understanding of what knowledge or experience has been gained along the way. It's also micro-credentials that can be combined to make up larger programs or standalone bite-sized chunks of knowledge. As I mentioned, being able to value any experience, anything that you've gained to help your employability. Let's look at the stakeholders within this blockchain credentialing environment and what is some of the value to the stakeholders. We have independence. The recipients own the credential, does not require the issuer or verifying third party to be involved after that credential is received. There's ownership. The recipient can prove ownership of the credential. There's control. The recipient has control over how they curate the credentials they own. They may choose to associate credentials with, on a social media profile or not. There's verifiability. The credential is verifiable by third parties, like your hiring organizations or admissions department. And there's permanence. So the issuer may prove they issued the credential. It can have an expiry date, and it can be revoked. Also an example of control over that certificate. Okay, at this point, I'd like to quickly go through a little bit of a demo. I've put in screens here of certificates that we've recently designed. As I mentioned, it's very easy as an issuer, as an organization or a startup wanting to issue certificates. It's very easy to join us. You register, create your template, and you issue. You can either create and modify your template yourself using our designer tool, or we can create it for you. This was a custom design for Alt Futures, and you can all have a look at it. I'm sure there are people in the audience who will be receiving the certificate. Once you've registered and created your template, you can then issue. Issuance, very simple, again, built for convenience. It can be issued on demand, in batches, or by API integration. This is an example of an on-demand issuance where we've just selected a single recipient and we're issuing the certificate to them. in terms of, back to terminology, I mentioned notarization. So the way we've designed the solution, we have a master copy, which is created and owned by the issuer. That's your issuing organization. The issuer then issues an original copy to the recipient. That recipient may then share their share or transfer certificates to third parties, and those are called certified copies. And what we can do is we can trace and limit interactions based on the type of copy you're using. So, that brings us back to the point of control, of visibility, and of tracking your certificate. Once issued, a certificate link, a URL, is generated, and what you see is the view that a recipient or any receiver of that URL will see. It can then be shared on LinkedIn or on other social media platforms, where it can also be accessed from there. It's quite a nice design where there's a lot of features for the recipient themselves to download, print, share, and there's also verification ability for the third-party recipient. With third parties, let's just talk a little bit about how we do our verification. We verify through the hash. At the time of issuance, a hash code is generated using the key attributes of this transaction, and it is encrypted and stored. At the time of verification, we generate the hash again using the same key attributes as they appear within our application. And we use the same encryption algorithm as well. We then compare the hash that was created at the time of issuance with that created at the time of verification. And if they are different, then there's a problem. If they're the same, we can then say that this credential is verified, and part of the key attributes that we verify belong to the issuer, they belong to the recipient, and they belong to the actual certificate itself. But what does the recipient get? Now, the recipient can work very well with that public URL, that certificate link. They can embed it, they can share it, they can download and print and put in paper-based versions into their applications, but they can also use the mobile app. Within the mobile app, the recipient may collect different links or different types of documents, and they can request for them and get them within their blockchain wallet, which is managed through the app. And then they can generate custom CVs with a collection of these verifiable evidence in the form of qualifications or certificates or skills references or work attestations. So in the end, you end up with a verifiable CV. And finally, the value to issuers is the insights. Our previous speaker spoke about insights being measurable and actionable, and how insights plus action give you impact, create impact, and that's what we're aiming to do. How do you know how your certificates are interacting, or your qualifications are interacting with the world? We look at their mobility, we look at where they're being accessed, how they're being accessed, how they're being used, and over time, a story can be told pertaining to this interaction with your certificates, pertaining to validity, to demand, to usefulness, and those insights can tell you where you need to work on your programs, where you need to supplement, which programs go together, and basically the overall demand for your qualifications, for your certificates. And finally, what we're looking for, we want to scale our product. Our mobile app is free for recipients. We have very, very price-sensitive schemes for everybody else, for issuers. We also have a partnership model for key issuers, so revenue share, potentially revenue share on larger organizations, and value-added services for ecosystem partners such as LMSs and other organizations. And finally, our offer to you. We are offering to all challenge sponsors of the Alternative Future Hackathon and to nonprofit organizations who may be listening to this presentation, we offer 100% discount on our startup plan for 1 year, and that includes no commitment beyond the year. What it means is that we, if you decide to sign up, use our platform, and you decide, okay, that's it, you're not going to continue, your certificates will still remain valid, your users can still use them, they will be available. We also offer 2 custom templates. We're highly negotiable on that. Obviously, it comes with the Skills wallet and unlimited issuance. That for us is our major VP in terms of what everybody else is doing. Yeah, it's an offer you can't turn down. And so we can do this with a voucher. Just contact us and we can set you up. Thank you.